Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Eduardo Covarrubias. I think I pronounced that right.
It's Eduardo Covarrubias.
That's it. He's the chairman of Los Andes Copper, who's a TSX-listed miner focused on developing its 100% owned Tier 1 copper molybdenum porphyry project in Chile. A chemical engineer, industrial engineer by background, Eduardo has been involved in the banking industry with Chase Manhattan Bank for almost a decade, covering the mining sector in Chile, and has expertise in project financing, structural finance, mergers and acquisition transactions. As chairman, he's going to talk through about the growth of the company and where they are today, and their strategic plans for the future. So let's welcome Eduardo to the podcast. How you doing, Eduardo?
How are you, Rob? Thank you very much for having me here. Nice to see.
No worries. Appreciate your time as well. So yeah, just wondered if you can, as we always start these podcasts off, just wondered if you can tell us a little bit about your career, your background, your involvement in the mining industry, from I suppose when you graduated to present day.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a chemical engineer who never worked as a chemical engineer. So went straight into finance. As you pointed out, I was involved for almost a decade in mine financing. So I had exposure to structuring new projects, putting them together, capitalizing them, and then also through the cycles, having to deal with restructurings and some of the nastier side of making projects work in adverse conditions. So I had quite a bit of exposure to that, and that was actually done both in New York and in Santiago, dealing with mining companies operating in Chile and some other places in the region. So I've been involved in mining as a professional since the early 90s. And with Vizcachitas and Los Andes also for a very long time, with Vizcachitas since the 90s as well. And with Los Andes since we consolidated the property into a single company in 2010.
So I just wanted to give us an overview of Los Andes Copper, a little bit about the history.
Absolutely. I mean, Los Andes is obviously, as you mentioned, a Canadian listed company. Operates a single asset, which is the Vizcachitas project. Vizcachitas is a very, very large copper-molybdenum porphyry deposit located in Chile and in central Chile. And it's clearly a tier 1 asset. It's a very large deposit with that's being advanced right now through the pre-feasibility process.
What's the latest update on the project and the key takeaways? Obviously, looking at the delivery of the PFS. That's what stage you're at the moment.
Yes, we announced the results of the pre-feasibility study late February, and we're about to publish the actual report. We announced our maiden reserves. That's 11 billion pounds of copper equivalent. And in terms of resources, we're showing 15 billion pounds of measured and indicated copper equivalent pounds, and another 15 billion pounds of inferred resources. So this is, by any standard, one of the largest undeveloped copper deposits out there. And obviously we happen to be in a very mining friendly jurisdiction and in an area in central Chile with plenty of infrastructure, which is very, very important when putting together in terms of CapEx and also in terms of operating expenses going forward. Very, very important elements for the project.
And the asset, what other mines or assets are surrounding your particular asset?
Well, Central Chile is home to 3 or 4 of the world's largest copper mines. If you look at north of us, 70 kilometers north of us in the same belt, same configuration, you have Pelambres. Pelambres is the flagship operation of Antofagasta Minerals. It's the mine that made that company, and it's still the largest operation they have. 70, 80 kilometers south of us, you have actually 2 mines on the same, 2 sides of the same hill. It's 2 mines on the same, if you want, deposit. One of them is Rio Blanco, which is the Andina division of Codelco. Codelco is a state-owned copper company. And that is not Codelco's largest mine, but it is Codelco's largest resource. The other side of that same hill, you have Los Bronces. And Los Bronces is one of the 2 large operations that Anglo American has in Chile together with Collahuasi. So these are all massive operations. And further south, you have El Teniente. El Teniente is also owned by Codelco, and El Teniente is the largest underground copper mine in the world. So we're sitting in a neighborhood of monster mines, and we have all the elements and the profile to become another one of those.
Los Andes obviously holds itself to high ESG standards. What are some of the measures you've put in place to make the project a more sustainable operation?
Well, first, we have the benefit of being a greenfield project. So we can design a project from scratch. We don't need to deal with legacy decisions or operations and cleanup situations from the past. As Los Andes, we've made a commitment of adopting what we see as the critical sustainable mining practices going forward. To give you some examples of this, first of all, we've decided to go to filter tailings instead of traditional tailings deposits. That means we're reducing water consumption by 50% from thickened tailings or some of the other more traditional solutions. That's what we see as a very big change. That also not only means we're reducing water consumption by half, but also we're reducing the footprint of the project by being able to confine the whole operation in one valley versus 2 valleys, which is what we had before, where we were looking at other tailing solutions. That's a big change. Another big change that comes along with that is we're switching to desalinated water. We see that mining projects, particularly in Chile, with the effect of climate change and the drought that's been created around that, we need to sort of migrate to desalinated water. We're doing that, and we've done that by joining a consortium, which is a multi-client consortium, which is another element that's right now very important when you're dealing with social and community matters. Because this consortium, we're going to represent about 25% of the demand of that project. The rest is going to be some other smaller mining operations and some other high-end agricultural producers that can afford desalinated water. But we're also requiring that consortium to make desalinated water available to the communities where the project and the pipeline goes by. And we see this as key. Again, this is an area that's particularly hard hit by the drought and climate change. And some of these communities, they're having even drinking water problems. So this is a way to show how mining can contribute in many ways, including very specifically making infrastructure for water available in areas where otherwise it would be unthinkable. Other changes we're doing, for example, is we're changing the comminution technologies. We're switching from SAG mills to HPGRs. That's going to bring down power consumption by 25%. We're also switching more traditional methods of moving around concentrate logistics. We're switching to retainers, which are essentially rotating sealed containers. That allows them to essentially put the concentrate on a sealed container at the mine operation. and actually it goes sealed all the way to the ship, and then it gets opened within the warehouse or of the ship itself. So that is those are changes that have a deep environmental impact and are ways of showing how mining is not only contributing for the electrification and effects of copper itself, but as an industry ourselves, we're making the changes to lead on ESG practices.
Vizcachitas is classified as a tier 1 asset. What does this mean, and what level of interest has it attracted from some of the major miners?
Well, because of first of all, we are located in Chile. Chile is a mining jurisdiction, so it's a country where you can develop large copper projects, and we've been, as a country, able to show that over many decades. We have a scale, and this is what puts us as a tier 1 project. We're going to be able to start producing over 180,000 tons of copper per year, and over the life of the mine, it's going to be over 150,000 tons of copper. There's very few projects that can show that you can produce that amount of copper over the very long run with a solid cost structure, and again, in a jurisdiction that you can actually look at investments for 30, 40, 50 years. That's what actually puts us solid as a tier 1 operation again. And also, and I haven't touched this, but this deposit is completely open. So this is the operation that results only from the information we have on this deposit so far. We only have 60,000 meters of drilling. This can continue to grow significantly. And that's actually obviously what the majors and let's call it strategic players are looking worldwide. And obviously this is a good name to be paying some attention to.
What does an increased demand for copper in the wake of obviously the green energy transition mean for the company?
Well, for the company itself and for anybody who has good, solid, large projects, the deficit of copper that's going to be coming over the next 6-7 years is huge. And that means that all the projects that have a reasonable prospect and that have a scale need to be developed. And we believe that we're actually very well positioned in that list. And the list is not very big, very long, and we're very well positioned in this. So for us, we see this as a must, if you will, with including some other projects. This is a must that needs to be developed if we're serious about electrification globally.
What's the I suppose the environment in Chile at the moment in regards to mining? How is the mining industry changed over the last few years?
Well, you can see in Chile is a mining jurisdiction, is a mining country. You've seen the discussion over the last year or the last 6-7 months, how the government and the institutions have reaffirmed the need to make sure that the mining sector has conditions that incentivize investment in the long term. Chile depends on mining, particularly on copper. It's the driving sector that essentially finances a lot of the needs of the country, but it's also a sector that is now requiring substantial investment just to keep up with the production. I mean, the Chilean mines have been around for a very long time, but the grades are coming down. Some of them are having to switch from leaching operations to flotation circuits. So there's many $1 billion of investments per year for the next several years. And the only way that happens is by creating the right conditions for the mining companies to trust the country in the long term. That is happening, and we're seeing that the mining companies are actually coming in. You've seen a couple of transactions of actually new players coming into the country to invest long term in coppers, and that's part of what we're facing. There's been a discussion about the new or a change to the royalty tax that's present in Chile, and we can see how all parties, the mining companies, the government, the political sector, they're all coming together into a discussion where everybody's points of view are taken into account to make sure that if there's increased taxation, it is compatible with long-term investment.
What do you see what do you see the challenges within the copper industry globally moving forward? Obviously, there's an undersupply of copper. I went to a conference the other week, and someone, a junior miner, said to me that the copper price needs to rise by a significant amount to start some of these copper projects. What do you see as challenges that the industry is facing within the copper sector?
A couple of things. I mean, I would agree that copper price needs to move up significantly, particularly for some of those more marginal projects to be able to be developed. There isn't enough copper identified. So that also means that exploration in copper needs to sort of continue to grow. But then a discovery, if you discover a project today, you're probably 10, 12 years away from making that project a reality in operation. So there is a gap there, and there isn't enough big copper discoveries out there to bridge the gap. Can just copper price on its own fix that? I'm not sure. So that's an open question, and I'm sure there's people better prepared than I am to answer that.
And as a conclusion, what's the outlook for the remainder of the year for the company and the project?
Well, in our case, we're putting together the PFS report, and we're putting it out in the next few days. There's some pretty obvious optimizations to be done. We have 15 billion pounds of inferred resources that don't make it to the mine plan. A relevant piece of that is actually sitting right below our mesh of drilling, and that's just because the older drilling that was done on this project 10, 15 years or more ago were shorter holes. So we need to go back and extend that drilling down and bring all that into the mine plan. That in and of itself increases the mine life of the project from 26 years to over 40 years. So those are pretty obvious, immediate, if you want, optimizations to be done. Another optimization is just trying to figure out how much more does this deposit grow, particularly to the east. We've been drilling to the east of the deposit. It's completely opened it up again. So we used to say we knew where the center of this deposit was. Now we don't even know where the center of the deposit is. And the only way to do that is to go back drilling and try to investigate that a bit better. So there's a lot of potential for increase in value beyond the PFS, which is again already a pretty compelling story. There's also some deep drilling that we need to continue doing. We've had some very nice high-grade intercepts on the bottom of some of the deeper drilling we've done so far, and that's starting to illuminate that there's probably an underground potential or case to be developed beyond the open pit. Those are all elements that need to be further worked on, and we need to work on that, and then obviously start doing the early works for a proper feasibility study, a full feasibility study.
Eduardo, really appreciate your time in giving us an update on Los Andes Copper, and obviously what you're looking to achieve, and obviously the outlook for the remainder of this year. And obviously I wish you well for the course of this year. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they've got any questions, if they want to follow your story, how can they go about doing that? Obviously, following your story on social media, what social media platforms are you on?
Absolutely. Well, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, and you can always write us directly at info@losandescopper.com, and we'll be happy to reach out directly and communicate with them.
Yeah, no worries. We include those in the show notes accompanying this episode. So really appreciate your time. All the best for 2023. Those that are listening, appreciate your continued support. Please share this episode amongst other mining professionals in the industry, and not only those within South America, but globally. Obviously, we have a multitude of listeners, whether it's people within the mining industry, whether it's service providers, or even investors. So really appreciate your continued support. Please keep sharing this content as far as you can. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.